what are some things that we should keep in mind at the beginning of the year so that we can set ourselves up for success before we dive into your actual breakdown of your 5 small shifts? I would just love to know from you, what can we do now during the summer to prepare ourselves for success, to set ourselves up for success?
Yeah. So one of the first things that I think I would say is that something I learned the hard way is that it is very difficult. It is not very difficult. It is more difficult to take back a commitment than it is to just set those boundaries from the beginning. And so summer is actually a really great time to reflect on what you want your work boundaries to be going into the new school year, because you're a little bit separated from the emotional work of your job. You're a little bit separated from the students. You're living within the rest of your life. And so you're getting to spend lots of time with your family, your friends, your passions, the other things that are so important to you, the other pieces of your identity that are not just teaching. And so summer is a really good time to evaluate, when I look at next school year, what do I want that boundary between school and life to be? And when I think about what my best life looks like during the school year, what boundaries, what rules do I need to set in place for myself, especially around commitments, right? So that I don't take on too much and I don't burn out. So some of these boundaries might look like, I'm only going to redo 2 lessons a unit. I'm going to teach with the lessons that I have from the previous however many years I've been teaching, and I'm going to redo up to 2 lessons a unit, and that's it, right? That could be a boundary. I'm not going to say yes to any other new commitments until I hit after the first quarter, because then I know kind of what the classes that I'm working with look like. I kind of know what the demand is on my time and energy. I'm in a flow. So maybe I'm not going to make any new commitments until after first quarter. Maybe I'm going to set a boundary around how many days I'm going to stay late, right? I'm only going to stay late 2 days a week. I'm not going to bring any work home on the weekends, right? What do you want those boundaries to look like before you get to school? Because when you get back into the groove of school, it becomes that much more difficult to set boundaries because you're around students. So you're tapped into that emotional component. You're surrounded by your colleagues. And so you feel like your decisions are impacting other people. Yep, there's pressure. And you also have less mental capacity because you're constantly making decisions. And so you may say yes to things that logically don't make sense because you just don't have the full functioning of your brain, right? Because you're doing so many other things.
That's really sound advice. Do you have any suggestions on what we can do or say to when we want to say no, but we don't know how to say no, or we feel guilty about saying, mostly the guilt, I think.
Yeah. So, okay. So
we're going off on a little bit of a tangent, but
no, this is good. So one of the things that I often talk about is that and I struggle with this a lot. Like I would consider myself to be a recovering people pleaser. But a lot of times we assign reactions to other people, right? That then make us feel guilty. So I'm assuming, so I'm going to give an example in my own teaching career. My 3rd or 4th year of teaching middle school, I said yes to advising yearbook. Okay. And that was a bad choice because at the time I was advising another major club called the Technology Student Association. I had 4 preps. I had no other teachers teaching any of the classes that I was teaching. So I had nobody to collaborate with. And again, I'm like a second, or I think I was like a 3rd year teacher, right? I should not have said yes to helping with the yearbook. And I said yes because I felt like, well, if I don't do this, somebody else isn't going to do this. And my principal is going to be disappointed in me. And I think sometimes if your brain works like that, if your brain works the way that my brain works, right? We have to be very careful to not assign reactions to other people, right? So if I had said no to my principal, likely he would have just gone to somebody else, right? But I created this story in my head that if I said no, nobody else would say yes, and the kids would suffer. And really, in reality, the yearbook still would have happened. So they would have found somebody else. Maybe it would have been a parent volunteer. Maybe it would have been a combination of teachers who were helping with it. So the first thing I would say is sometimes we assign these moral feelings and these moral judgments to things, and they don't actually exist, right? Like, so guilt is a normal thing to feel. And also, I think stepping back and looking at the situation and saying, how do I know what's making me say that this is going to be the reaction of the other person to me setting this boundary, right? And then the other thing is just having a script. So the first thing that I always suggest to people is if you're new to this, if you're new to saying no, the first thing you can do is give yourself 24 hours. So let's say you're asked to do something and you are somebody, and this was me, who is going to say yes. That's just like, you want to give a reaction on the spot. You're like, yes, I can do it. And you don't really consider your situation. A rule you're going to set for yourself is that you are no longer allowed to say yes immediately. You have to give yourself at least 24 hours. So the way that this would function, and I have a script in my free resource folder, and I'll share it with you, and you can put it in the segment or whatever, so people can see it. But essentially it's, thank you so much for considering me for this opportunity. Something that I'm working on this year is that if I say yes to something, I want to make sure that I can give it 100% because the kids deserve that. The kids deserve somebody who is able to be 100% present, 100% of their energy goes to whatever this new commitment is. And so I just want to make sure before I say yes, that I can do that. I'll let you know by tomorrow or by 2 days or however long you need, if this is something that I can commit to. Thank you again for considering me. And so what that does is it allows you to get out of that emotional place that you're in where you want to say yes because you feel guilty, and lets you really consider the totality of your situation, right?